It's not got such a high, unfortunately, being negative failure rate for a reason. And if you think you can go into it and just turn up as and when you like and in whatever state you feel like, not do a post session either, then you're going to struggle because and especially if you don't work on the emotional side of it as well. So yeah, you've got to put the work in, but if you do the studying, learn the strategy, and then you put the work in, then I always say to people, you're not just improving your trading with particular working on the emotional issues, you're actually improving your life as a whole. Because if you get angry about something within trading, it's not trading that has created that anger.
Just a quick pause before we get into this. Trading can be intense, and staying mindful during your session matters so much. That's why I created and am sharing a free 3-part audio experience that's helped me deeply. 1, for starting your day with calm intention. 1, to stay centered while you trade. And 1, to wind down with grace when it's time to stop. These tracks are yours. Just click the link in the description. Hey, welcome back. Here at the Market Mamas podcast, I cover a wide range of topics from the intricacies of day trading to mindset mastery and psychological growth, with the goal of the conversations being next level growth for all of us. My name is Becky, and I'm a US-based futures day trader from the Pacific Northwest. My trading experience includes trading stocks, options, crypto, and futures, with both trading a personal account as well as with prop funding companies. Over time, I found that I most enjoy the fast-paced world of intraday futures trading, so that is my primary day trading focus now. Thank you for joining me on the Market Mamas podcast today. Hi guys, so Becky with Market Mamas, and I'm very excited today. I have a guest with me from the UK. This is Alex Morgan, who's been a trader for more than a decade and has learned and grown and pivoted in all sorts of really interesting ways. So I can't wait to share you guys a little bit about his story and different ways that he has grown as a trader and see what kind of tidbits we can offer that might help all traders out there. So thanks for being here with Market Mamas. And Alex, thank you so much for your time being here today.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
So I think I mentioned I've been a trader since 2021. What about you? When and where did you kind of get your start with the financial markets?
Yeah, so I started in 2009, 2010. And yeah, my sort of backstory is that I've traded in forex, but I've also traded in gambling markets and also really taken sort of longer positions as well in different things. So kind of had a mixed bag, really. So yeah, that's how I started out.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I started with stocks and swing trading, and then I found futures, and I guess I just haven't been able to pivot from them. I'm learning and getting to know more forex traders, which I think trade similarly to futures. But, it's funny. We all just try different things and figure out kind of what works with our psychology, right? Do you think there's an element of different types of trading works with different type of people?
Oh yeah, 100%, I'd say. Yeah. And even really, not just in terms of what you're trading, but in terms of swing trading, day trading. Yeah, I just think that, you have to really experiment, see what works for you. As you say, with psychology, obviously that's a big thing. Some people adapt and actually quite like the sort of stress. For some people are day trading, others sort of don't really like that and they tend to prefer swing trading. And then also, I think it all depends really on how much time you've got available as well. So, some people I come across that are day trading and they're still trying to work a job. It's not going to be that easy, shall we say, to do that. So for some people, swing trading is going to be easy if you don't have a lot of time. So yeah, I totally agree, really. It's about experimenting and finding what works, really.
Did you ever have a time that you wanted to quit trading altogether because you're just like, this is hard, I've had enough, I don't want to do it? Or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I suppose yes and no. There's a lot of times where I did want to, but then I don't know, I'm quite resilient. So yeah, I suppose I did at times, and then I just quite quickly talked myself out of it and thought, no, I've come this far. But yeah, I think it is incredibly hard, as you know, especially to start with. And I think when we go into it, we just don't really understand what's involved. I think we tend to think, okay, get a strategy. If this strategy works for other people, that's fine. I just copy it. I do exactly the same and I'm going to make loads of money. And as you know, it doesn't really work like that at all. Once you've got a strategy, then you've got to really make it your own. You've got to obviously back test it and you've got to do all the testing. And once you've done that, that's probably only a small part of it anyway, because then you've got the psychology part. So Yeah, I think we totally underestimate it. And I think unless you've had someone go through the same path, then I think most people have no idea what they get themselves into, really.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you more because I think when I started trading, I felt like coming from a nursing background, a medical background, like you learn the facts and then you figure out what's what and then you execute on it. And that's how you get through a situation, right? That's how you get from, fixing something to the outcome.
Yeah.
But trading, I think, it's not like you learn the technicals and you learn a setup, and then that gives you an edge and an ability to just execute a buy and a sell. But then I think that's when the real work starts, when you figure
Yeah.
out how easy it is to mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that, there's it's just unlike really a lot of other things out there, really. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but yeah, it's so different. And I think even the way we arrive at trading as well, we're obviously wired for the short term, instant gratification, and that really obviously doesn't help with trading at all, which is, I suppose, one of the things that I see with other traders. One of the sort of background things that they have a problem with is the long-term nature of trading. So rather than it being about, looking at what they've won today or winning trades, you've got to constantly zoom out and look at a bigger picture. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different things that we have to, well, I suppose, unlearn, really. We have to unlearn things when we arrive at trading. We have to really actively rewire our brain for the long term, I think, is another big thing. So yeah, it comes with its challenges for sure.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I love the phrase, you need to see the forest through the trees,
Yeah.
which is like with trading, you should be able to have like any kind of day, whether it be good or bad, and have it just be a day. If you're going to be a trader for the next 20 years and build wealth over time, like one stop out can't be this big heartbreak that you might think it might be in the moment when you get hit and it's a big loss. Like it doesn't, if we can, I've gotten better if I can try and minimize the emotional impact of that and recognize that it's just one day, then I can pivot away from any sort of negative feelings faster, because it is like the long-term goals and zooming out. Like I think that is such a good point that I didn't realize for really quite some time as a trader.
Yeah, and I don't think many people do, if I'm honest. I think as well that, with the sort of long term element, it's just, as I said a few minutes ago, it just goes against what we're really used to and what we're really wired for. But I think one of the things is, you've got to really think about, okay, if I struggle with the bad days, then for a lot of people, part of the reason is that they're celebrating the good days in inverted commas so much. And so it's very hard to celebrate a winning day and then just be neutral on a losing day. And really, you just need to be neutral. I know it's not that easy, especially when you first start, but you need to be neutral on a day to day basis because, you know, each day is not really what we're looking for. We're looking for the bigger picture in the long term. So, yeah, I think that's part of it as well. People expect they can celebrate one and just be okay with the other, and our mind just doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, every trade outcome is going to have an impact to our psychology. And so I love that you say that about aiming for neutrality, because I have read that in multiple books. And then my mentor also is the same. He's like, you're real happy, Becky. I know you had a great win, but like, I don't want to hear from you the deep sadness if you are to have a losing day tomorrow. So try to just chill, and try to just let it be a day and move on and stay focused on your process. But
Yeah.
even for me, I'm working on that. So do you have any tips or anything that any way you've gotten better with that over time on being more neutral?
I suppose I'll take a step back and say that there's ways that you can sort of work on actively rewiring your brain. And so you've got to really put trading into like a sort of long term analogy. So people use like the casino analogy. You can use like sports analogies where, you can take like a year's worth of trading as an equivalent to like one sports game and then split the different, like, possession. Each team getting possession of the ball is equivalent to each trade. And so you wouldn't go mad about, one team getting possession of the ball because it's only a tiny part of the game. And in the same way, each trade is only a tiny part of the year's worth of trading. So obviously there's a longer explanation with that, but I won't go into it. But yeah, so those sort of things that you need to really actively work on. And then, to be honest, for some people, a losing day is really going to be very emotional. And so that's really where, and this doesn't cover everyone, but for some people, they're going to be emotionally triggered. And what they may need to do if they've been trading a while, because obviously you get used to it. But for some people, they don't get used to it. And so they would need to work on what is actually triggering them emotionally when they suffer a losing day. Because rationally, they know that they're going to have losing days, but then if you're still getting triggered emotionally, then you need to really work on why. So I'd say that would probably be the bigger thing, because as I just said, some people, to start with, just have triggers there, and they're generally from emotional memories from their past that they need to work on, release the emotions, reframe the memories, and then they won't be triggered in the same way, because our brain is always predicting. It predicts on past experiences. And so if you have these emotional memories, that's how it's going to link them together, and it's going to see, I don't know, like I had a client last week where we were working on losses, and they kind of saw losses in trading as like a betrayal of the amount of work they've put into trading as a whole. Then when we sort of worked through those emotional memories, it came back to other betrayals in their childhood. And so their brain's predicting, linking the two things together. And that's how the emotional triggering works. So bit of a long answer, but yeah, I think that's an important part of it as well.
Yeah. I think that is very powerful. And I appreciate your answer, because I think a lot of the episodes that I put out at Market Mamas are aimed towards like messy middle traders. So you know enough to be dangerous and you've had some good successes, but you're struggling. And I think this is the kind of a main core of what we experience in that area is figuring out how we go from this strong process and a very clear risk management system when we are thinking, functional and literal and focused and calm when you're not in a trade. But then, when you're in a trade and heaven forbid it goes against you and the emotions get triggered, that landslide can happen so fast that everything our logical mind put into place can be just taken out, and you can really cause significant damage to your accounts in those moments. And so I think if anyone has experienced that, what you said is actually really, really powerful, Alex. And I do want you to talk about how you do coaching, because if people haven't sought anything beyond just their own independence or technical trading mentor, I think that there's work to do there. I have certainly had to do some with my mentor too. And he also advised me to look at my childhood, and if there was anything, kind of hovering that would make me have a stronger emotional reaction to my detriment. And there are things that I found that I could focus on that have been helping me kind of uproot and work through and resolve, so that they maybe aren't as hot button of an issue when there's a trigger, such as a losing trade. And so that's kind of my long-winded response to, I think that you're on point with that, because I think figuring out the emotions we slide into quickly, where that comes from and how we can sort of mitigate that faster is almost like a step that you have to go through in order to start making consistent profits. I don't know if you would agree with that statement, but I don't know that it's negotiable. I think that everyone who pushes through to a consistent profitability and is able to leverage up and trade bigger size has figured out how to manage just this topic.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, the thing that I suppose, well, it's not that I don't like it, but I just think it's overused in trading, is that, oh, you just need more discipline. And to be honest, with the work I do with people, for a lot of people, obviously having more discipline, and they should be more disciplined, is going to help, it's going to work. But there are a certain element of people where just telling them that they need more discipline is not going to be enough because of these emotional triggers. And, it's not just with losing, but obviously losing days is a big thing. When traders go in drawdown, that can bring up all sorts of emotions, obviously. But even things like mistakes, if someone's trading like all day, they're day trading, and they make a mistake, then they can be triggered emotionally, and quite often those go back to memories where they made a mistake reading with, unfortunately, their dad. It seems to be quite a bit, but yeah, so the memories come up. They were reading or doing homework with their dad. Their dad got annoyed about them making a mistake, and so from then on, that person stores that as a subconscious program. It's an emotional trigger that any time after that will be emotional. If they make a mistake, it's something that is wrong in their eyes, And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things that people need to work on. With that, we would sort of release the emotion. We would go through it and we would say, well, your dad was having a bad day. He was stressed at work, or you had an argument with your mum or whatever, and really reframe it. So it's the releasing emotion and reframing it that's important. But yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, another thing that comes up a lot is the wealth thermostat. So, people feel comfortable trading a certain amount of money, but then when it gets above a certain amount, and it could be the amount their, I don't know, dad used to earn or their mum used to earn, or whatever, really, if their parents spoke sort of badly about rich people that had a certain amount of money, again, they can be formed as subconscious programs. And so people can have a fear of success, fear of failure, all of those things come up. There's so many things that come up. Some people don't need to work on these things, obviously, but yeah, for others, if you've been trading for a while and certain things keep coming up and you're not really getting anywhere, then yeah, I would advise basically to work more on yourself, not really on your trading, because more knowledge is not really going to help in a lot of these cases. It's going to be really your reaction to what's going on.
Yeah, I love that because I think there's so many successful trading systems out there. And I mean, YouTube is saturated right now with trading techniques. And I think that there's a success rate with pretty much everything that you can find out there. You just have to, trade it correctly and in the right contacts and get good with it, back test it, study it. We can get a successful trading system, but the crux to getting the payouts and the consistent income is not self-sabotaging at these different pivot points potentially in your progress. And I think stemming from childhood and just a human nature, I think people don't want, there's a fear of rejection out there, whether it did from your parents or what manner of childhood out there. And so taking losses can sometimes feel like, it's like the social media thing. Everyone, maybe someone took 50 pictures and they look through all of them and then they added a filter and they pick the very best one and that's what they post. There's so much of that in our society. And with trading, sometimes we don't want people to see the ugly pictures where we were, our kids were pulling the other kid's hair. I try and get a family picture. I think you're a dad. Like, it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be a disaster trying to get everyone to look great at once. And so that's for me, even I battle this of like, I want to put out my best side, but sometimes I have an ugly side that I'm not super proud of. And that's still a part of me. So I'm working to try and put out the good, bad, and the ugly and to just be authentic with it, because I think burying the things that we do that aren't as cute, such as if I have a tilt day, I don't want to tell anyone, I want to bury it. I think putting some shame around it never ever has served me in moving past it. More so if I tell a close friend or my mentor, we talk it out, maybe I let the tears flow or whatever, and I acknowledge that it happened. I think I pivot faster. Do you think there's something to that of like just acknowledging the hard parts?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because otherwise you're working hard to sort of keep it from everyone, as it were, as well, aren't you? You're trying to, if you try and hide things from people and try and put on this different facade, that can be hard work in itself. It can use mental space, obviously. But yeah, I just think for ourselves, it's just acceptance, isn't it? I think if you're able to sort of see that I'm not perfect, and none of us are, then I just think it's easier to deal with. I think as well with trading, there are some elements of the people that come into trading that think that, they can avoid losses, and, these everyone has to suffer losses. They are part of our edges. And so, yeah, I think the quicker you sort of accept it, the quicker it is to sort of move on. And also, I think you don't want to try and push it away too much, because otherwise, if you're trying to resist something, it can make it even worse at times. So, you're going to have days where things don't go as well. You've just got to minimize that, really.
Yeah, minimize your response to it, you say?
Well, yeah, both. I mean, try and minimize the effect it has on your account, basically. Not everyone. I mean, another thing that I would talk about quite a bit is to have like a pre-trading routine. Because if you've got like, and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but it's kind of linked. So if you start off trading and I don't know, prior to that, you've had an argument with your wife, husband, or whatever, or with a family member, you're going to start, your emotions are going to be not where you want them to be at the lower level. They're going to be some are up here. And then obviously if something goes wrong, it's quicker to all blow it all out and, to start tilting. So I think that that's another thing I'd recommend as well, to actually get yourself in a decent performance state in the same way that a sportsman would, because they don't turn up to a game or a whatever and just sort of turn up 1 minute and then start playing. They get themselves ready, have their warm-ups and whatever. So yeah, I think that's important. But going back to your original point, yeah, it's just minimizing the effect it has on your account, but also on yourself as well. So both really, I'd say.
Yeah. That's a great point about like your pre-market routine, because I have found a lot of value in that too. I mean, if I work late at night or a kid needs something during the night and I sleep poorly and then I roll in blurry-eyed and I shortcut my system and I am anxious about this and whatever, it's generally not great
No,
for
it's
my
not.
training
No,
process.
no. And I think that, some people would say to me, oh, but that's not going to make me a great trader. Well, of course, it's not going to make you a great trader on its own. But when you have the knowledge and you work on your psychology, these things are going to, improve your performance no end, because, we get paid on how well we perform, obviously over a long time period, as I was saying earlier. So it's not on each particular day, but you've got to be consistent, and that's the big thing as well. Really, you've got to be. It's the consistency, isn't it? Really, that you've got to be able to let your edge play out over the long term.
And I think that is a good point that you made in there that speaks to the point of, to become a successful trader, rushing the process is not helpful. You need to let it take time and figure out all the different angles of it, because you're right, a pre-market routine is one small part, but it's an important part to think about and work through and figure out what speaks to you. So you have to learn the technical, you have to get some people around you can communicate with, you have to figure out what type of journaling best speaks to you and brings the most benefit in the long term. And you have to figure out the pre-market routine. Are you a meditator? Are you an exerciser? Are you a cold shower? Are you a person who prays? Like whatever it is, like there's so many little elements that create the really like gold standard person who I'm still honestly fine tuning of how she always behaves when she wakes up and as a trader and after the trading session and with her family and her people. I think it's a big picture change in order to do this really hard thing of trading, and it can't really be rushed because every little piece of it you have to figure out and make it your own.
Yeah, and I think that's where there's a lot of good things on social media. Don't get me wrong, but I think social media tends to rush people because they see, obviously, all the things, particularly on both Instagram and maybe TikTok as well. I don't really go on TikTok, but from what I've heard, where it's all the cars, the houses, and whatever. And so I think that tends to rush people or think that they can achieve it quicker. But yeah, I mean, one big thing I'd say to people starting out is don't give up your job, basically, or if you do, have at least a part-time job that you can cover all your bills, because there's nothing worse than needing the money from trading, because you're going to trade way different than what you probably would do if you don't need the money. And I think that added pressure really it's a nightmare for some people, and it really causes a lot of problems.
Alex, that's an excellent point, because I think to solely rely on your trading, you've got to be rock freaking solid.
Yeah, yeah. And for a long time as well. Not just a month, yeah, you've got to know what you're doing for a long period of time, I'd say.
I think know what you're doing for a long period of time and then wait till you freaking fall and then get back on your feet and figure out how low the dip goes, like on your trend, how low is that low and can you recover? What does it take? What does that look like? And prove to yourself that you can get overconfident and get really good and make good money and then slip up. And then what does that look like in restabilizing before you'd even consider having trading be your sole income? I mean, I've been taken payouts for 2 years now, and I'm still a part-time nurse. And to be honest, I don't know when I want to not do it, because it serves a different part of my brain. It allows me to just focus on something else, which I can shut off the strain and pressure of trading and just be in the moment in that situation. But also, there every 2 weeks, a paycheck comes that meets needs for my family. And then I don't know, it absolutely takes the pressure off of where I feel like if I have a losing day, I can get back to neutral faster because I didn't need that to pay such and such bill. And, maybe on Friday, I work a lot of Fridays. So on Friday, I'm just not going to trade. I'm going to be a nurse, and it's calming for me. I love the idea of having trading be, the financier of my big, beautiful life, which is coming. But, I'm not there yet, and I appreciate having my part-time nursing gig still.
Yeah. I think it's a great point, really. I mean, the other thing I talk about with people talking about the pre-market routine is having a post-market routine as well. And people tend to sort of think, oh, why do I need to do that? But and again, it's different for different traders, and the strategy and exactly what you're doing with regard to the impact it has on you. But there are quite a lot of traders that will, if they've had a losing day or a bad day or they made a mistake or whatever, they tend to go from trading and then just carry that into their personal life, their family life, take it to bed with them, wake up the next morning, not even in a great space. So I really do like the getting yourself ready before you start, but then also, you know, getting out of the trading performance state and back into, shall we call it, sort of normal life afterwards as well. So I think both of them are important.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I actually, in all my episodes now, this summer, I created 3 different audio recordings that I listen to when I trade. One at pre-market that helps me focus on like gratitude and focus. And then one while I'm trading that helps me focus on my system. And then I have one that's for afterwards. It's called Closing Time. And it's basically, it reminds me when I put it in my ear that like I am like there's so many different parts of my life, and at this like my trading session is done, and I can be grateful or I can whatever happened. But it's you gotta be able to shut that off and not carry it with you, because I really think like this is our life that we have right now. And if we're carrying over this one aspect of our life and it's impacting our relationships and our time and it's distracting, we're selling ourselves short. And that's not a kindness to ourselves and our families. Obviously on the hard days, it's a bigger impact to our families versus when it's a great day. But again, striving for that neutrality of like, I still have all these other things in my life that are fulfilling, and letting them be fulfilling instead of trading encompassing everything. I think it's so much better. But when you're an early trader, God, it's like it's such a draw. Like I remember it's almost like there's a period of where you could be addicted because you just want to study, you want to listen to everybody's everything. Like I would have YouTube in my ear every time I'm cooking dinner because I want to like get this new strategy or whatever. So it's better, I think, to level off with that.
Yeah, and I think that really, the sort of resistance I have from people with the pre and the post routines is that I think they just sort of think, okay, I should just be able to trade for, an hour, 2 hours or whatever. And they want it to be quicker and easier than maybe, it should be. And so people just want to reduce down, how much they have to do once they're sort of up and running. Obviously, as you say, when you're learning everything, yeah, you're just taking on probably way too much information. I think we all tend to do that, where probably I don't know off the top of my head, but probably like a big percentage we don't even need. But yeah, we just take on everything because it's new, it's exciting, we just want to get on with it. But yeah, I think, you've got to, I would say you've got to treat it with the respect that it deserves. It's not got such a high, unfortunately, be negative failure rate for a reason. And if you think you can go into it and just turn up as and when you like and in whatever state you feel like, not do a post session either, then you're going to struggle because and especially if you don't work on the emotional side of it as well. So yeah, you've got to put the work in, but if you do the studying, learn the strategy, and then you put the work in, then I always say to people, you're not just improving your trading with particular working on the emotional issues, you're actually improving your life as a whole. Because if you get angry about something within trading, it's not trading that has created that anger. It's basically you bringing the anger to trading, but trading is triggering you emotionally. And so it's not just about trading that you need to think about, although obviously it should be reason enough, but it's going to help your whole life. And another thing I say to people is that, you've got to see that the benefits that because trading is the way it is and it's got the heightened, emotions, sensations, and the money's involved, it's only things like that that are going to really, really show some of these things up that you need to work on in your life. And so you should see it as a bonus, really. I mean, a lot of people don't, obviously, but to start with, but once they start working through it, I think that they realize the benefit it gives to them, their life as a whole, their family as well. Yeah, there's so many aspects, really. So, yeah, I think there's so many good things about trading, because you have to work so much on yourself.
That's such a beautiful point. It's like who you become while becoming a successful trader is also like a big, awesome thing.
Yeah, it is. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, even with like, and people don't particularly like it, but I always get people to start meditating when I start working with them. And, a lot of people, I think, find it difficult. And, when they say that, I'll just say, well, it's even more reason why you need to do it, really. But I think those sort of things, of course, it's great for trading, because you've got to be able to sit and wait for your strategy to be there. So it's good practice for things like that. The awareness it brings you, with the emotional issues, focus as well. But I think all of those things are great. But I do like listening to clients when they say to me, obviously the trading's improved, but their wife or husband or whoever says to them that they've changed in terms of things like meditation. They're more relaxed. They don't get as, annoyed so quickly. And so those things are nice to hear. I must admit, when people say them, it's not just about trading; it's about them as well, and the effect it has on their life and their family's life.
This is so good. Alex, I'm so glad you came on with me today. It's so good because I feel like I'm experiencing that and I'm still have more growth to go. But like I started focusing on the psychology about 2 years ago, and hence look at how that coordinated with my profits.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I Yes. But my family has noticed the changing as well because my priorities have shifted and I've focused on, and less of like big emotional swings, more like steady gratitude. And like even on the losing days, like I still have a safe home and my children are happy and loved and like all of these other things around me that are good. And even if I lost, 5 figures in a day, like I'm okay. Everything is okay. Everything starts to level out when you start to realize like bigger picture helpful emotions, and you change who you are and your heart kind of settles in, more worthiness and abundance. And then even the discipline too, like discipline is like the D word in trading, like you mentioned earlier. But, if you can start adjusting different parts of your life, your emotional response, your physical response. I've been the most consistent exercising I have done has been since I've become a trader because
Good. Yeah.
honestly, it just helps me so much to like get out of my head and get into my body and show up for that every single day. And that has changed who I am and how I feel. And it's helped me recover from back injuries related to my nursing work because I've been stronger. And so it's just one small aspect of like changing who I am into this person that is more level, more grateful, more routine, more balanced, more showing up for things even though they're hard. Like if I'm doing a lifting, I can go, you can do one more rep. I can go all the way till the buzzer and push myself. And that has transferred into better training. And so do you find that with exercise actually, for example, is that something that you also see people benefit with?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, obviously, I mean, the emotional things they're going to have the biggest impact, if I'm honest. So the emotional things are a big part of it. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, I work on exercise, as you say, because it feeds into so many other things like eating, but sleeping, which is a big one. I see, I was speaking to someone before I came on actually, and he started exercising more and he's sleeping better now as well. So yeah, I see that all of those things. Like I'm pretty big on meditation for them, eating right. Of course, obviously you've got to have your bad meals. I'm not saying we need to, just go to the extreme, but eating pretty well, exercising, meditating, sleeping, even scheduling out your day if they've got different things going on, organizing themselves. Obviously people traders need to journal, but I think even if people can spend traders can spend like, even if it's to start with a couple of minutes just journaling at the end of or the start of their day outside of trading. So just put a timer on for 2-3 minutes and just write whatever's on your mind. I think that works really well as well. So those are kind of the main things that I get people to do. Obviously, different people have got some things sorted and not others, so it depends. But yeah, they have an effect. I mean, some people, as I said earlier, sort of say to me, yeah, but that's not going to make me a great trader. And of course, without all the other things, it's not. But you've still got to think of yourself as like I don't know, mental performance athlete, whatever you want to term it. If you don't show up, you could have all the knowledge in the world of trading. If you can't execute because you're not in great shape mentally, physically, you're going to struggle. And so it's not just about knowledge, it's about execution, and the consistency, I would say, as well, comes through having these things outside of trading sorted out so that you can be more consistent. You can show up as your best self and do what you need to do on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's so good because I mean, to treat day trading as a significant profession that can fund this big, beautiful financial freedom that most traders are aspiring to, I think it's important to take a big picture approach to it, like you're speaking of, because the trade that makes a really great amount of money could be a 25-minute trade within the first hour of market open. But that doesn't mean necessarily that that's the only work that you have to do as a professional day trader. You also need to make sure you're sleeping the night before trading session and get up early and make sure you are mentally ready to trade, similar to an athlete getting ready to execute on their field. And then have the wind down and study, like athletes will study tape of their games. That way they can figure out even what they did wrong on a great day and fine tune
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, like if for a 25-minute trade, that could be a minimum of a couple hours of all these extra little things that you're doing to be the consistently profitable trader over time, which you have worded so well. I think that is a good point of like, we're not just here to click buy and sell, but it's like
No, definitely
doing
not.
all the things make a big impact.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even like for some traders I work with, some say in Central European time, so they're an hour in front of me. For some of them to get up and trade on the London, some of them found it a bit like, okay, I want to do this before, I want to do the pre-session, pre-market routine. And then they just sort of work out and they think, okay, I'm not really as relaxed when I do it. So maybe they trade later and they trade New York and so it's really about finding what works, making sure you can do the things that you need to do and that actually fits your body clock and you're doing, what you need to do at the right time. So I think that's a big thing as well, really.
That's amazing. Yeah, work with who you are. Don't try to be someone else. Like you got to make it your own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And some people, some people struggle with some things and, others with other parts. But yeah, I think it's just about working. And as I said, a bit earlier, that you've got to see that you're working on yourself with the trading, but you are improving your life with all these things as well. And I think that's a good way of, looking at it, that you're getting a lot of benefits from doing all these things, really. So, yeah.
So speaking of different people needing different things, I'm going to ask you specifically with something that I struggle with. So I am so fast paced. I'm a multitasking mother of three and I ER nurse and ICU nurses. So meditation is something that has been recommended to me from people that I really love and respect as mentors. And I try and I'm not great at it. So for someone who it's foreign to and they are trying, what do you tend to start with recommending? Like morning, night, both? How long? Like what's the entry level thought on
Yeah,
that?
it's a good question, actually. This comes up a lot. And I think when people start working with me, they say, oh, I spoke to this person or I read this thing, but I really struggle with 20 minutes, doing this and doing it at this time of the day. And I just say to them, to start with, you don't need to start with 20 minutes. That's like, that would be something you can work up to. But I would say, 5 minutes, because what the thing is about sort of creating new habits is it's not about the intensity of something, it's about the consistency. And so even if someone's really, really struggling, I'd say to them, just give me 3 minutes a day, whatever, as long as you can do it every day and create a habit. That's all we want. We can add the intensity afterwards. And so for a lot of people, it's almost like their mind will tell them they don't have time. And so you want to make it so that your mind can't do that. Let's say it was 3 minutes. Who hasn't got 3 minutes? And if you haven't, then, time's not really the issue, is it? You need to organize your day more. So I think that's the first thing. Reduce down the time, just create a habit. However low you need to go with the minutes, just start creating a habit. The next thing is people always say to me, okay, should I meditate on my own or should I do a guided meditation? Again, to start with, whatever gets you to do it. So I would say doing on your own is harder, but I would say it's better, just my personal opinion. because you're not going to necessarily have a guided meditation while you're trading. And so I think, if you need to start with a guided meditation, then start with it. But then once you get the practice in, I would kind of drift over and start implementing, you know, a few days a week or a couple of days a week where you do it on your own, because you want to recreate really what's going to happen while you're trading. So, yeah, I mean, those things, it's really about what can you do? What can you do to get it started rather than, going too mad on which app or which how many minutes. And then another thing that comes up a lot as well is, I'm not doing it very well. There's no not doing it very well. You've just got to really do it and just not judge it. So even if you sit there and you are, thoughts come into your mind, because essentially what we're looking to do is we're looking to not get involved in our thoughts. So we're looking to observe thoughts or let them be there rather than getting involved in them and creating a story. So what you need to do to start with is obviously, that's the idea of it. But for some people, including me, I used to sit down and just think thoughts the whole time. And I don't know how many times I stopped doing it, thinking, oh, I'll never get this. Luckily, I kept going with it. And after a while, you just sort of start to recognize that, okay, if I have a thought, I didn't get involved in that one. And that feels amazing, if I'm honest, for someone like me, especially in the old days, because I used to constantly think. And then after a while, you just start to feel a bit more relaxed. And once it starts to work, and not work, but once you start to find it easier, should I say, then it's easier to keep it going. And then once you've done it a while, you can increase the minutes up. And so, yeah, it's really not to judge it. Don't get annoyed with it. Just keep going with it, really, and just do whatever works and whatever you can do to create the habit, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good advice. Because I think if something seems intimidating or hard and you try for like the full thing and you can't, it doesn't feel good, paring it down and making it manageable to start is such a good point. I mean, we can't all, flat out run a 7-minute mile when we first started.
No, I was just gonna yeah, I was just gonna use that example. Yeah, you wouldn't really, but I think that people with meditating, they don't really look at it like that. But if I said to someone, okay, I want you to start jogging, they wouldn't say to me, oh yeah, I need to start jogging 5 miles each day or whatever. But with meditation, I think people think because it's something with the mind and it's not exercise, that they just should be able to do what everyone tells them to do in all these blogs or YouTube videos. But yeah, really, it's the same as anything. What can you do to create the habit? And whatever you can do to start with, you can always change it after that.
Yeah, really good. I think big part of what you're saying is like there's so many little ways that we can prioritize making ourselves calmer, more focused, more neutral.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like becoming this person who can be a successful trader. It's a lot of little pieces, and to just work on it diligently is like the key of persevering, I would say, as a day trader.
Yeah, I mean, I even go so far as if I've got people that say, oh, I'm just not a patient person, I say to them, well, it's not that you're not a patient person. You just haven't worked on that skill of improving that. And they say, oh, well, how can I do that? And I say, well, stop looking at your phone every time you're in a queue or you're waiting in line or whatever. Meditation is good for it as well. There's so many different things you can do to improve all of these things. Whereas, as using your terminology, it's not just about clicking buttons. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, we haven't even really touched on flow state, but once people have got the emotions, managed, because you don't control them or stop them, but you're just managing them, you're not getting triggered by them. But once they've worked on those and they've worked on the what I'd call like the performance sort of criteria, like the sleep, exercise, etc., then yeah, getting yourself in a position to enter a flow state is really the next thing. And that makes, a huge difference as well, really, because so many people are, yeah, distracting themselves because we're used to doing it with phones. But, give like two things that are the worst thing for bringing you out of a flow state. One of them would be multitasking. So, it's like looking at or listening to different things, looking at your phone, that's going to take you straight out. And the other one would be daydreaming. So thinking of how much this trade is going to make me or how much I lost yesterday. So those two things are very bad. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can work on with flow states as well, which are obviously going to improve. For some people, I recommend if they struggle sort of on their own, then maybe listening to binaural beats is a good thing as well, get them into a flow state. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you can work on. But yeah, a hell of a lot of things, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I really am interested. I think about this flow state because I think that that's such a great point about how you have to take day trading so seriously when you're executing a trade is to really be dialed in. That way you're making sure you are doing your full process, paying attention to all of your data and not tuning out little bits because you hear the multitasking for me is a huge thing. It's a great point.
Yeah, well, I think we're all a bit like that, aren't we? Because we're in a world where we're constantly distracting, ourselves. Even things like it depends how far you want to go with all this, but for people I'm working with, they'll sort of say to me, "Oh, I struggle in the morning because of my phone, and I go on it, and I feel, I don't feel great then when I'm trading." And I say to them, "Yeah, if you look up Andrew Huberman's video on looking at your phone first thing in the morning, I think it's something like, I mean, people can Google it obviously, but something like the first three quarters of an hour, you need to keep free of any sensory experiences because what we're doing during that time when we wake up is we're like downloading the information from the second half of our sleep. And if you have that sensory experience during that first part of the day, you're not getting that download. But also, what you're doing with that is you're distracting yourself, but you're setting yourself up to be distracted more so for the rest of the day. And you're just training yourself to be distracted generally. So, what you do outside of trading, people say to me, "Oh, yeah, well, I do that, but I won't do that while I'm trading." And I say to them, "But you're making it so difficult if you're behaving in a certain way, constantly distracting yourself to be able to." It's very difficult to turn it on and off. So, oh, yeah, I'll just do whatever I want outside of trading. But you're training your brain to be like that, and you're going to make it harder to be more focused, more concentrated while you're trading.
Right. That's a really great point of like, it's like, I've heard the expression of, how you train your dog. Like that's how you will behave is the things that you allow in all parts of your day. Well, they're going to creep in super easily at any point because it's allowed most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, you don't want to, go to the extreme and never look at your phone, and because, it's just part of our lives. But I think that you have to really realize what we're doing and the impact it does, and you just got to minimize it really. So it's a decent sort of level. Definitely, I wouldn't look at your phone first thing in the morning. No, that's a definite no. And then at night time as well, I wouldn't. But obviously, during the day, we're going to do certain things that are not optimal. But I think that we've got to really limit them and really find the balance that's good for our trading and our life as a whole, I would say.
That's really great advice. How long have you been coaching? Because it seems like you've definitely, I can see why you do it. You have really excellent points in this small amount of time we have today. So how has that come to be with you?
Oh, thanks. Thanks for the comment, firstly. Yeah, I've been doing it for 5 years now. So, yeah, I worked on my subconscious. I can't remember the exact year now, but maybe not far off 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but I worked on my subconscious just to really improve how I was trading and just my life in general. And yeah, was blown away by it. So I did the same qualifications as the guy I worked with, and then yeah, I just started doing the coaching. So I work with poker players as well as traders because they're very, very similar in terms of the long term nature. Well, there's just so many similarities, really. You don't always win, even if you have a great trade. You don't always win if you're playing well playing poker. The emotional issues are very similar. I work with some business people and sports people as well. So yeah, it's good. It's good. I enjoy it. It's good sort of seeing others improve, and for some people, earning lots of money, or the sports people doing well, improving on their performances. So I enjoy it. It's good.
Nice. That is amazing that you said that because I didn't know that about you. And the episode that's coming out we're recording this week. It's coming out in 2 days, but it'll come out right before your episode. It is all about the book Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
She is a
Yeah. It's
world-class
interesting. Yeah.
poker player, and
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
she teaches it. And someone advised I read that book, and I read it through twice because I was like, this is so good, the similarities, because every time she would talk about a poker hand, I could just insert a trade. And it's the same thing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
quick responses, high leverage, financial stakes, emotions at play. But then you have to recognize that you can be a really skilled player of your game and you won't win every hand. But big picture, you could do big things just by showing up and working and taking losses and taking wins and learning. It's such an interesting analogy.
It is, yeah. I mean, they are just so similar. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, it's just kind of helped me, obviously. But yeah, I mean, the emotional side of it, I suppose probably one of the big differences between the two is with poker players, they're playing against other players, and so there can be that interaction that can be triggering for them. Like if someone, if anyone knows about poker, if not, just take my word for it. But if a particular player is three betting another player, then that can cause emotional triggers from bullying. So it kind of has some differences, but I don't know, probably 90 whatever percent of it is very, very similar, very, very similar. So yeah, I mean, there's some things that I would say within poker, working on your subconscious is very well known, and it's pretty, I suppose it's something that people do a lot of if they get to a certain standard. It's quite well known. People talk about it, the top players talk about it. I don't really think it is, from what I've seen, all the people I've spoken to in trading, it's something that's completely different to most people. But then on the other hand, something that traders do, that poker players don't do. And so it's good to sort of learn from each, really. But yeah, it's a good book. Good book. Yeah.
Nice. So cool. Well, I think we're nearing the end of our time today, so it doesn't get too long, but you are seriously a wealth of knowledge. I'm really, really glad that you came on today, because I think you really speak to the whole part of trading that you have to get to when you're trying to break through next levels with profitability, is just focusing in on your emotional parts of your body that you have to address intentionally to push through those barriers that you keep running into. And you really spoke very well to that. And so I definitely want people to be able to access you. So tell us a little bit about what kind of coaching you offer, and then we'll definitely link to you in the show notes as well.
Yeah. So I basically only offer one-to-one coaching. So it's like I would do 10 session packages with people. Sometimes I do 5. It depends on what issues they've got. And then first session is like 2 hours long. So we go into like a background of their past, their present, the performance things. Are they doing any of those? And then the second part of that would be really working on whatever we decide is the biggest issue that they've got to work on. And so, yeah, and then the subsequent sessions are all 60 to 75 minutes. So, yeah, I don't do group coaching, but I just do one-to-one coaching. That's what I offer.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. Maybe we'll have to have you back and talk more about this flow state and all of the bits of wisdom that you have.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you. And thanks for the comments.
Yeah, of course. And, we wish everyone happy trading and good luck with working on your psychology. And there's a lot of episodes on Market Mamas that speak just to this, because I don't even do a lot of technical episodes, because while I have a fair amount of technical skills that I fine-tuned over the years, for me, the biggest impact in my success has been exactly what we're talking about today, is the psychological work. So that's definitely the priority of this podcast too. So hopefully that speaks to viewers. All right. Thanks, Alex. Take care and have a great day.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks very much for that.